Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're a fan of Bull Shark Sports, go to shop.tennis. Wait, shop. Crap, I'm starting over. Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're a fan of Bull Shark Sports, go to shop.letsgotennis.com. Get yourself a hoodie or a hat. Also, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story on the podcast. So if you have a story to share, go to letsgotennis.com/my story, and you might have your story featured on the Atlanta Tennis Podcast. Today, this is Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hestley. Today, we're discussing the question, can your kid toss and catch? Ben, ready to talk youth sports?
All right, fired up. Let's do it.
All right, today's conversation focuses on the question of, can your kid toss and catch? The simple action sending and receiving expands from the very beginning of improving their spatial awareness, knowing about the world around you, that other objects move. My 1-year-old's trying to figure all that out right now, trying not to bump into a wall, much less being able to catch a single tennis ball. But also, the next step in that is how good are you at it? So chasing a ball down in the outfield during the World Series, that requires some serious sending, receiving skills. But then the last, it really does come to the point of view of, how do our words affect other people? Are we speaking at someone or are we speaking to someone? So Ben, where do you want to start? At the beginning?
Man, I'd say, Shaun, you always give this nice, long, lengthy overview of what we're going to discuss. So many avenues we could go there. Let's just start with the physical skill, right? The act of sending and receiving, right? You toss me a ball, I have to receive it, I track it. Where is it going? Try to catch it, and then I send it back, right? It's a fundamental skill that segues into so many different sports. And in my program, as you know, we talk about tennis being nothing more than playing catch using a racket, right? In a lot of our programs, you'll see kids out there playing catch. They're tossing and catching. If it looks like tennis, they're letting the ball touch the ground, simulating a bounce, catching it, and then toss it back over the net.
Simply put, I like it. So, can you toss and catch? Now, going to the very beginning, my son is 17 months old as we record this. So, to be able to, he can throw the ball and then elbow forward, we'll fix that. But he can throw a ball and he likes to send, and that's what it is. But he's also a child, so they love receiving. They're just not any good at it yet. And I think we know a few teenagers, maybe a few adults that aren't very good at that receiving. What's the question? Are you listening and actively engaged in listening, or are you just waiting for your turn to talk? And in that case, the same thing is that he loves to throw, but if I toss it back to him, it just hits him in the belly and falls down. So at what point do you think, Ben, that they can start figuring out, ooh, here it comes, I can practice my receiving skills?
It depends, it depends on the child, honestly. I mean, I've seen kids early as 2 be able to just wrap their arms around a stuffed teddy bear. We talked about my kids learning how to catch by me tossing stuffed animals at them. Because the first thing you don't want to do is be scared, right? You don't want them to like, oh my God, I got hit in the face with a ball. I never want to do that again. Okay. So something really soft. And that's like in our programs, even as we move up the chain, like, kids that are 8, 9 years old and older, we play with low compression balls. Like, one of the big benefits for us of playing with low compression balls is if I hit the ball too hard and it hits Sally in the face and she's 7, she laughs about it. Oh, yeah, whatever, you just hit me in the face. And whereas if I did that with a regular tennis ball, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm done with this. This is not happening." So there's part of this too is encouraging them to enjoy the act of being physical, the act of tossing and catching. But it can be. I don't have any research necessarily to say like this is the age at which they can toss and catch. But they can, early as 2 years old, 3 years old, something like that. You can also, I've had kids that we roll the ball. I used to sit with my kids and we like sit on the ground and spread our feet out, and they would spread their feet out, I'd spread my feet out, and I would roll a big, like a kickball or soccer ball to them across the ground, maybe on a hardwood floor, or maybe we're outside on the driveway. I would just roll the ball to them and they would stop it and then roll the ball back. Okay. And when you're learning how to catch, I always use the biggest, softest thing possible. Um, balloons are really good too because they move super slow. I have some videos of my daughter playing, doing self rallies in our, like, literally in our house, just with a racket and a sorry, not tennis ball, racket and a balloon. Just tap it up. It comes down super slow. She hits it again, comes down super slow. She has plenty of time to adjust to it. And we've done that in some programs too. It's kind of hard outside because the balloons can kind of fly away and stuff. But in a contained space, in a gym or something like that, you could do balloon rallies, right? Have two kids, they got balloons or a balloon, and they're just kind of tapping it back and forth with their racket because it moves so slow. They have plenty of time to react to the ball,
And that's
to the
great.
balloon.
It's great in any sport. Those types of things. It's just that spatial awareness that we're trying to track an object in space moving outside of our own bodies at really any age. I saw, was it Sabalenka and somebody else was, they were doing a warm up with the balloons going side to
Yeah,
side. That hit online sometime recently. And that's just a cool thing to think because we're just having fun. You got to realize if you're not having
yeah.
fun, why are you doing it? Besides, sometimes we have a job that we do because we make money and it's not always fun. There are reasons to do things that you don't necessarily do for fun. But in this case, once we get toward, okay, now I can toss and catch. Can I get good at it? Because now we have the cooperative concept versus making it more difficult in baseball or football. Throwing a football, go play catch with dad. Can you throw a football back and forth, right? Or can you rally with a volleyball? I'm going to hit it, you're going to set. I'm going to hit it, you're going to set. We're going to pass back and forth. We're going to keep it going, and that cooperative motion allows us to practice for the less cooperative version, which is then now I'm hitting the volleyball at you, or I'm going to throw the lacrosse ball and I'm going to throw it way up over your head. And like a wide receiver, you're going to have to go run, get it. Or like in the outfield in a baseball game was my example in the introduction is, okay, I just picture Andrew Jones. He was the guy that I thought was amazing growing up on the Braves team because he just, as soon as that ball hit, he knew exactly where he was going. And that guy's hundreds of feet away. I mean, he's a football field away. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, no, I got it. It's going to be right here. Now, that guy probably was able to toss and catch by the time he was two. And maybe that's just not all 2-year-olds are created equal.
Maybe not. I mean, I wouldn't go there and say that Andrew Jones was just this innate, out of the womb, incredible athlete. I mean, obviously was a very good athlete, but there was a lot of work to be done to that too, right? And I say this a lot. I think sometimes we get the cart before the horse. We worry about the skill, like you mentioned him, running down a ball that's 100 feet away, and he knows how to take an angle. He knows how to turn and put it look to where it's probably going to go, and put his head down and run towards that spot. All right, and then redirect once he gets there. But that's a specific skill to tracking a fly ball that starts with a very fundamental skill of just being able to cooperatively toss and catch with somebody. You know, the joke in little league is with little bitty kids: are you playing catch or are you playing fetch? Because you'll have kids that they're trying to do like we do with older kids. You see the whole line of the traditional warm up, right? Baseball warm up or softball warm up. Half the team's on the foul line, the other half the team several feet out into the field, and we're throwing. That's our catch play, right? I throw the ball to you, Shaun. You catch it, you throw it back. And little kids, t-ball teams, little coach pitch teams, they try to simulate the same thing, but they can't do it yet. So it ends up, Johnny throws the ball over Billy's head, and Billy's running out to get it. So again, it becomes catch versus fetch. Um, and so you got to do with that. You got to be creative. And I've mentioned before, sometimes little kids take the glove away, just take the glove off. It's a distraction. Oftentimes, it's an obstacle because they can't even catch the ball with their hands. How the heck are they going to catch it with a glove? And
Right, too big. Yeah.
let's work the physical, actual fundamental skill of just catching something.
Yeah, and that's a good point with the Andrew Jones example because it is thousands of hours of practice. So now maybe some come out of the womb naturally with some of those abilities, so they don't have to work as hard to get to a certain point because genetically we're all a little bit different. We've seen some floppy 7-year-olds and we've seen some really athletic 7-year-olds, but sometimes we can tell by the time they're 3 or 4. We've worked with Tennis for Children. We've worked with very young children and they're all very different. Some of them I watched years ago, there was the son of a professional athlete, And that 3-year-old was ready for pros. I mean, that kid could catch, he could swing, and he could whack the ball, where the other 3-year-olds, they were still chasing butterflies. Just
So can I ask you this? That 3-year-old you just described, what did his parents do? What was?
father was a professional athlete.
Okay, so his father probably really enjoys sports,
Yep.
right? I mean, if you play, I mean, we've seen both ends of the spectrum, right? We've seen the like, I played college ball or I played professional ball, and I love sports, and I'm going to get my kids as ingrained in it as possible. Or of course, these are other extremists, like it was a terrible experience. I hated it. The Andre Agassi types, right? I had to grind and work, and it was just not fun. And I don't want my kids to have anything to do with that, right? And so, but let's focus on the person who does enjoy sports and does want their kid exposed or have experiences in many types of sports activities as possible. I bet you that 3-year-old has seen some football games, has sat through some baseball games, maybe not live, but probably on TV. I look at like my own kids, and I think what they're organically picking up just by taking them to a game, just by watching the game on TV, just you and your wife talking about the game that happened a lot. Did you see that game? Remember that game last night, man? Can you believe that Max Fried got called for a balk? Like, what's a balk? Oh, and we'll go through it. So you're sort of organically, having them experience different types of sports events and different types of sports actions. So when they do get to the physical part of doing it, they already kind of have in their mind, okay, I've seen this. So this is how it's I kind of have a visual of what this is supposed to look like, versus a 3-year-old who's never had any exposure to sports or any physical activity. They have no clue what it should look like, much less even have the capability to do it.
Or a parent throwing a ball at them, or wanting them to do it. By the time, like my son, he was 8 months old, I was bouncing tennis balls off his head trying to get him to play catch. Like, it's that parent encouragement. So what you're saying is it may not be fully genetic, because if my father was a professional athlete, but maybe that my father was a professional athlete, so he's into sports and he's getting me into it. So that child probably had a lot of toss and catch at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, we're not saying your parent has to be a professional athlete for you to
No,
also be an
anybody can
athlete.
toss and
They
catch.
just have to be. I mean, you could have guys that just they love sports. Moms that just love sports, and they take let's take their kids to it. We want to go to a soccer. We want to go to the Atlanta United game. Okay, so let's take the kids with us, right? And they just sort of organically are introduced to soccer or whatever. So those kids are going to pick up on stuff a lot faster, just because they kind of have they have a realization of what it's supposed to look like.
Part of the lifestyle, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So now, toward the end of this, we talk about Andrew Jones, we talk about my 1-year-old, we talk about your kids kind of figuring it out and maybe thinking about getting really good at it. But now we talk about that sending and receiving. And at the end, Ben, I want to cover that, because it is a life skill to be able to. I look at a kid and I can say, hey, you play football with your dad, throw a football in the pool. I love it. My brother and I used to throw a tennis ball in the pool, and I knew the difference between when he wanted me to catch it and when he was aiming at my face. I knew when that was. And that also comes to how we treat people. And I think that's why we like sport in general, is because it does focus on sportsmanship. It does focus on respect and cooperation, even though it's competitive. It really focuses on a lot of those things. So sending and receiving in your personal life is really huge, Ben.
Yeah, and we use the term a lot with our older players with the word challenge, right? Because they're doing a cooperative activity. Maybe it's tennis where they're rallying and they're at the point where they can be on the baseline, full court baseline, and they're green ball or even maybe yellow ball players, and they can hit good top spin strokes cooperatively with each other for a long time. And we talk about, hey, challenge each other, right? People always say, like, you coach an adult team. I always love this coaching like ladies alpha teams. Like, are we trying to win the point, or are we just trying to keep it going, right? And I'll be like, well, it's not on or off, right? It can be like, I want to challenge my teammate. Shaun, you and I are friends. We're teammates. We're in the same group together. We're trying to push each other to get better. So in our cooperative rally, we're going to push against that and see how how hard can I hit it? How fast can I hit the ball? And Shaun still be able to hit, like you mentioned, right? You know when your brother's about to haul off and chuck it at you, right? And you kind of escalate to that point. And we say the same in baseball, no different. We'll have the kids, as part of our warm up, roll grounders to each other. And we're like, hey, start out easy and then like challenge each other. Don't make it Don't make it impossible, right? That's what I often say to kids. It should be challenging. Make your tosses, make your feeds challenging to your teammate, not impossible, and kind of know that threshold.
So in that case, from a personal point of view and from a how I treat others point of view, if I'm going to challenge somebody, I still need to do it respectfully. If I'm gonna
Yeah,
if I'm gonna
great
push a
segue.
limit, right? If I'm gonna push a limit, or I'm gonna say, hey, this might be a hard conversation, maybe I need to prepare them for it. If you've got a kid and you say, all right, kid, I'm gonna speed it up a little bit, get ready. At least you're gonna prepare them. Wasn't that part of the preparation conversation in one of the books I read when I was, back in the day? But it was preparing somebody for.
Yeah, there's all kinds of terms you can use. Like if you say something, like a common one we use is I'm going to push back on that. Like if you say something I may not totally agree with, I say, hey, Shaun, I want to push back on that and suggest we do it this way, or something like that. Or the old like respectfully disagree or something like that.
Well, as long
But
as you do
sending every
disagree respectfully, because just because
yeah,
you
right,
doesn't mean you get to
exactly.
be a jerk after that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not like the baseball. This game is under protest, right? Which I always laugh at. This game is under protest. I'm like, well, you still lost.
Right.
It's
Has that
it's
ever
just a
changed anything?
protest. Like, I don't agree with it. We lost. But we did. So the game's under protest. Like there's no follow up. Like let's actually look at this game and see if the team maybe should have won or whatever. But I
Uh-huh.
don't want to digress anymore. But talk about the life skill, right? Yeah, we want to make sure that we teach these kids the sending and receiving of life, of communication, right? You send me, you say something to me, I'm going to show active listening, right? Not just waiting for my turn to talk. Okay, but I'm listening to understand you. And then I'll take that information in my head and I'll send you something back, and we can have our own little communication rally, if you will.
Communication rally. This sends me to Rosenstern and Guildenstern and Rosencrantz with the Shakespeare where they played the tennis, the verbal tennis, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it really brings me to a Zoom call where a lot of the kids over the last few years, if they were in school age time, really had to learn how to speak and wait and speak and listen and wait. Almost like the old CB radio where you had to make your statement, say over, and then wait for the next person. You couldn't just interrupt and jump in. We see a lot of the conversations today online or on television where they're trying to share something. And all of a sudden it just becomes this jumbled mess of arguing because we assume today if we just get louder, therefore we're heard. Where my brother has a different theory. When he gets quiet and softer, you need to listen because something important is coming. But that sending and receiving, I really do think is important because we do need to talk. Because if we talk over each other, nobody gets heard. So what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's so important in life. I mean, it's important in life. It's important in sports. I mean, it's happening the other day where, a pop flies hit and one guy's going, I got it, I got it, I got it. And, we talk about proper terms to use so it's clear, but, the other guy's like, he just keeps running. I'm like, what is he doing? He's like, I literally see this. He's like a car crash in slow mo. You're like, what is he doing? Like, and then and all of a sudden, bam, he just like, and I'm like, did you? He's like, I didn't hear him. He said I was so focused on the ball, I didn't see it. And I said, okay, well, that's important in baseball that we don't do that. If we hear our teammate, calling for the ball, then our job is to regress and push back and maybe then back our teammate up. But that's a good life skill too, right? Like how many people say that? Like I just didn't see it. I just didn't see that. And we just kind of plow through life, so to speak, and have no realization that there's other things around us.
Yeah, tennis is life. And it makes me think of line calls in tennis. I had a conversation with a bunch of 7 and 8-year-olds yesterday. Say, hey guys, go look at this ball. Where is it? Let's go to the other end and go look at where it is. And now let's assume that's moving. Austin calls it out. Wesley argues, look, Wesley, it was out. But look over here where you were, it looked in. So I understand why you're upset. Let's just starting point assume that we trust each other. how different would our lives be in the world if we all did that? Let's just assume let's start at that point. Now, granted, you still have to verify, trust and verify, which I like. But if we start with that trust, especially on the tennis court, baseball, whatever it is, let's assume the umpire is doing his best and he's not crooked and trying to get my son out because he doesn't like me, but we'll have a conversation about parents and umpiring later. So, Ben, did we answer the question, can your kid toss and catch, and what it means and why?
Yeah, I think we did. We talked about first at a very infancy, if you will. It's a fundamental athletic skill that every kid, if you're gonna play a ball sport, that every kid has to have, right? And just a good life skill, right? Just going out in the backyard and playing catch it's like one of my favorite things to do with my kids. It's so fun, you know? I remember my wife was pregnant. We used to, we dusted off the old gloves, softball gloves, basically, and we would go. She and I would just go play catch. It was so fun, so relaxing. So it is a good physical life skill from that point of view. But then, we get all the way to how it relates to playing the World Series or the Super Bowl, and then the life skill of being able to communicate with people, right? And that's what we want to. That's what we can do through sports is communicate with people, listen to understand, and then have that communication rally as we coin today.
Communication rally. There we go. Ben Hestley, this has been Youth Sports Talk. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Have a great day, everybody.